I think it is so amazing that you, who have sung really a marathon, not just one, but two this past week, are here and smiling and with us today. So I applaud you for your great artistry and your great endurance.
Thank you.
So let me start with our Lohengrin. I didn't expect you to be here, so we're thrilled to have you here. Piotr, Beczala.
Thank
you. What makes Lohengrin a special character in your opinion?
Well, the character. Should I take it?
Yeah, take it off. Sure.
The Lohengrin in my repertoire is some kind of unique role because smart soprano. Thank you, Tammy.
You're welcome.
As you know, I'm singing just Lohengrin from the old roles of Wagner, and it will be like that for a couple of years for sure, because I don't want to. Well, not die, but I don't want to, sing too much of this music, because I have still a lot to do in Italian and French repertoire, also Slavic repertoire in my case. So I enjoy really every performance, and this kind of what we have here that. Really represent my idea of Lohengrin too, because he's really an outsider, coming from some kind of enterprise ship, and really don't belong to this people. I'm sorry, guys. And you can see it also on the stage, because I'm the only one who has no costume. But I enjoy it actually. It's very easy for me to play the costume and the stage, and really I love this music. And when I started to sing Lohengrin in 2016, first time in Dresden, it was already a very good start, because in this production I got a big swan, a huge sword. I was really like they tried to give me a blonde wig like Peter Hoffman.
Yes, right.
So, but I successfully refused this.
I have to
and my wife was in the opinion that I have enough hair.
I have to ask you about endurance, because, of course, I know your wonderful performances in Puccini and in Verdi. Of course, all Wagner roles involve a great deal of endurance, but this role in particular seems to just stretch the endurance.
Well, yes. Of course, I have to build my Lohengrin on the experiences from my other repertoire. I remember when I sang a lot of Ballo in Maschera. The most struggling problem was the big break between second and third act for Gustavo. And now, with my experience with Lohengrin, it's a joke, This the 45 minutes break in Ballo in Maschera is nothing against the big break between first and second act of Lohengrin. And the role is really well, how to say, composed for the tenor. Of course, you have to sing wonderfully in the first act. You have a beautiful entrance, and second act is very dramatic, has very soft moments. But actually, the real singing starts with Brautgemach, with the scene with Elsa, and this had no ending. So, the last act of Lohengrin. I mean, what I have to sing is like almost the whole Cavaradossi and something more. This is you need a little more space in your voice and durability.
Thank you.
But this makes a lot of fun.
Now, our director, your director, François Girard, was speaking about transformation. And Tamara, your character goes through many transformations. Doubt that he's going to appear, joy that he appears, happiness at getting married, not trusting him. You shift so quickly.
It's almost like she's a real woman. She has real emotions. It's interesting because a lot of the times I've done like 13 Verdi roles now, and I love Trovatore, but Leonora, I mean, other than dying, doesn't make a huge character flip. In Lohengrin with Elsa, you meet somebody who is at a dire moment in her life. She's being accused of murdering her brother, and I don't know how anybody could be, normal in that circumstance. So that's why I think Wagner wrote it that she's a little aloof and loopy at the beginning. And then you kind of get past the wonderful fight where you win so magically with just your hand. But you didn't use magic, so... Then
I was a Doctor Strange.
Yes, he was Doctor Strange. Yeah. So then she kind of realizes like, oh, okay, I can calm down and be a little bit normal. Then, Ortrud comes in and is like, oh, by the way, you're marrying this dude, and you don't know who he is. Maybe you should ask about that. And, in normal circumstances, that is a very valid thing to ask. Oh, by the way, every time I go on stage for the third act, all of these guys, especially him, he goes, don't ask. Just don't ask any questions.
Oh, that's
I'm
wonderful.
like, but I have to. I gotta know. Yeah, so
Wonderful.
we get to that point, and then when she does finally ask, she realizes she gives up the most important thing in her life to that point. And devastated, she dies of heartbreak. So yes, there's a huge shift.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. Your character goes through so many changes. Mr. Groissböck, I wanted to ask you about the role of the King Heinrich, because it has been sympathetic and unsympathetic. It has been played in many various ways, and you are a very sympathetic king.
Well, first of all, the König Heinrich is not is quite square character in this. In Lohengrin, generally, there's not so much to show. He doesn't have really a sort of development. It's not like King Philip, where you feel him as a brutal ruler, and on the other hand, a very sensitive, vulnerable person. He's just coming to Brabant. It's funny because I just did in fall Don Carlo here, and there the guys from Brabant come to me to Spain, and now I'm coming to Brabant. and before we enter the stage at the beginning, I always say, "Come on, guys in Brabant, stop smoking marijuana, and everything will be good." It's just the problem. It's always the same people, but okay, good. So you have to make your own story every time. To deliver a bit more subtext, because actually, I mean, you come to Brabant, you want to recruit your troops for the war, and then you end up in this horrible story that she's accused of murdering her brother, and we, as a Brian, as the Herald, and me, we are looking at each other and said, well, we were not prepared for that sort of stuff. We just wanted to recruit our troops, and so we have to do this Gottesgericht, and of course you have to fill the whole situation with attention and tension, and that's the thing about being sympathetic or whatever. You just let the story happen with you, and that's one of the most challenging things for me with Lohengrin, because I sang it, I don't know, 60, 70, 80 times, and the music is beautiful. But and you will crucify me now, can become boring if you are not 100% in the story, because it's a lot of listening, and you have to listen actively. That means you have to feel every line of the colleagues, especially in the third act when Piotr is singing his Grail's narration. I'm trying to really read every single line, and I always make my pictures when he's singing about from aus fernem Land und nah bei eurem Schritt liegt eine Burg, die Montsalvat genannt. I'm always thinking about the Pyrenees. I'm in Montségur. I'm trying to create my own atmosphere and try to feel this. And if it reads outside, then it's good. And of course, in this relationship with Elsa, when she's accused, I'm very sorry for her. And I have, of course, when you hear it in the music, of course, I'm much more on her side emotionally. But as a king and as a ruler and also an army leader, I have to be very pragmatic, and that's also our way. I mean, if she asks me, mein lieber König, noch einmal ruf, also lass dich bitten, noch einen Ruf an deinen Ritter, actually it's not allowed, and I'm already breaking my rules, because we asked one time to call out for her savior, but he didn't show up, so normally we would have to execute her, but
I was on the way.
Yeah,
I was on the way.
I know that, that's what I've always...
The spaceship had a little, drive problem. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. There's maybe a half marathon in the city, and the spaceship has a drive.
You know how difficult it is to land this huge ship?
I have a vocal question to ask both you and Mr. Mulligan, in that you are a bass baritone and you are a baritone, and yet most of your music, a good part of your music, is above the staff. I mean, you go up to E's and F's, and that's almost tenor territory. Excuse me, Mr. Beczala. So it lies very high, right?
Yeah, it lies very high. It lies also low. It's I think it's the most uncomfortable beginning of any opera that I know. I mean, Beethoven 9th, you have this Ofroho, you have at least an A to jump off, and here you start immediately on the high E. God, and it's always, when you hear the trumpets, it's always like, it's always, I call the butt-squeezing instruments. It's time to get up. But Brian has the same situation, more or less, but he's at least privileged to start one tone below. But anyway, it's a question of energy. And if you're in the mood, as I just explained, if you're in the piece and you really try to let it happen with you, then it's still high, but I like it. I like it.
And Mr. Mulligan, your part lies also way up in the stratosphere.
I mean, it's not that high. I don't know.
Only Don Giovanni.
I think,
it's the tessitura.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great sing. It's not too long. Get a couple good high notes. Yeah. Then you go sit in your dressing room.
And you get to open the opera.
Yeah, you get to open the opera after sitting there for, 10, 15 minutes. Did you guys know that we were all on stage hidden? Could you tell?
Oh, during the prelude?
Yeah, that we're all there. We're all...
no time to warm up, right?
Well, I mean, not after the opera starts, no.
Right.
But yeah.
And the role of the herald, does he have an individuality to you? Is he a cipher? Is he just someone moving things from place to place?
Absolutely. I mean, with Francois in this production, we kind of made this little subtext, this little story that he was in love with Elsa. Did you know that? Yeah. So, so when she's getting married, I'm kind of, I'm happy for them, but I'm also sad. It's, yeah. And then, once she comes on in the first act, then I'm just kind of like, gobsmacked.
You're toast, right?
Yes, yeah. So that's the hair roofer's little secret. Mm-hmm.
But you don't have a long time to rest because you have to come back and sing a lot more high notes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. And watch her get married. Yeah.
Right.
It's a real, it's a sad night for the hair roofer.
Mr. Brooks, we are very happy that you are able to be here with us, and you are the winner of the Wagner Society of New York competition, so congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
And you sing one of the Noblemen, which is maybe not a long part, but it's a very exposed part.
Yes, it is. So we are, I guess, we're the bad guys in this opera. We side with Telramund, and we discover that coming out with everyone else, we're disguised in green when we're really Team Red. So it was one of my favorite parts about this because it kind of brought nostalgia to my childhood and the Power Rangers, and I could do all the different colors. But yes, it's very exposed, and whereas their music is pretty above the staff, mine is nice and on the staff, and it's pretty comfortable. It brings another nostalgia back to my baritone days. So, no, it's a fun role. It's very short, but it is very exposed, and it's actually a really great privilege to be on the stage with all these talented folk.
Amen.
So that's really what I'm thinking about.
Amen. So is there more Wagner in your future?
Say that again?
Is there more Wagner in your future?
God willing.
Speaking of exposed, you have a quintet in the first act, which is unaccompanied and a cappella, and which is harmonically wandering. Tell me about that. How does that feel?
You start.
Okay, well, it's the beginning of the prayer. This is the moment of sort of meditation, which ramps up to one of the most...
High meditation.
Yeah, high meditation. No, also low. And it ends up with one of the most, how shall I say, greatest music waves that enters a hall, because when it ramps up to this mein Herr und Gott, before the bell or whatever it is, the sign for the beginning of the fight begins, you have this climax of harmony, and also the strings are supporting this. It's just the climax of whatever you can compose, at least at these days. And so the prayer is one thing. This is my little stuff with a lot of brass below, and then it's a cappella, and it's very delicate because in terms of intonation, because the different characters have, of course, different intentions and different things to pray and to say. And you have the edgy Telramund, who is na 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 na, and we have this solemn thing, especially when Lohengrin enters, and I have my prayer is going to another level. First it's officially, then it's mein Herr und Gott, it's more insisting. And so you have to musically be very, very careful that these 5 languages come together, and we end up in the right key and in right intonation, because then the chorus comes in, and this is always there are some Wagner moments also in Tannhäuser at the end of second act. There is also one of these moments, even worse, because I think it's the flutes and the clarinets that they are even merciless, more merciless than the chorus, and it's important because if it's going down in intonation, then you know already that there is something also not okay with the intention, with the inner intention. That's
we have to enjoy also the dissonance between us,
yes,
because it's written like it's really strange. We are starting together, but we are never singing some kind of good harmonies. You know, it's and it could be really like Günther said. It could be a bad surprise at the end of the quintet. I remember that in Bayreuth we always did, before the performance, we did a rehearsal with this quintet, so that we have in the mood, that we are familiar with this dissonance, because it's really based on dissonance.
Since this is my first Elsa, when I opened my score for the first time and I looked at everything, if you look in my score, there is a star about as big as the page right in front of the a cappella section, because, you know, in Verdi, there's a lot of a cappella stuff, and a lot of times it's not in tune. So I was like, oh no, okay, so I have to learn this first. And that's what I did. I learned that section before anything, so I knew it was going to be in there. And then when we did it, our first rehearsal, it actually was like perfectly in tune, and I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Surprise.
Yeah, it was a surprise. So I was like, oh, bonus, it's not going to be that bad. So, yeah.
I have to say she's right. You should take a look on her score. First, it's a full score, and it's a very colorful.
Yeah, you can't read my scores. It's just all
I can't.
notes.
And I'm sure most of you have sung in Fidelio as well, and you remember
No.
the a cappella in the and you know that was Wagner's one of his favorite operas, and so I am just wondering if there is a relationship between that a cappella and
You mean the quartet of Marceline, Rocco? There's it's interesting. I heard it the first time, but you're right. Yeah, it's also this atmosphere coming in, and this innocence of Marceline, and the danger of Leonore. And then the pragmatic thing of Rocco, but with a warm heart, and then Giacchino in his a bit like Telramund, he's anxious, and you're right. Yeah, I think that's the key and the magic of music, that you have four, 5, 6, 7 people. I mean, Mozart was the champion in this, singing at the same time, and everybody is telling his story, and you see and you can listen to everybody at the same time showing his feeling. And if this comes together with the perfect harmony and intonation, then it's the magic of music.
Yes.
I have to correct myself. I'm sorry. I did Fidelio. Gioacchino.
So
26 years ago.
Wow.
how soon we forget.
It was unforgettable.
But it's the same line. Jetzt, Schätzchen, jetzt sind wir allein. Zum ersten Mal allein.
Now, Wagner's first opera is Die Feen, his first completed opera, and I understand that you have performed that.
Yep. So my very first experience with Wagner was Die Feen. It was for a concert in Frankfurt, and we recorded it. So if you want to hear Wagner's first opera, it's out there. It's story-wise very unique and interesting. I could not try to describe the story to you from memory right now if I tried. Just know that it's about fairies and then a lot of other stuff.
Offenbach did the same story.
Oh, yeah?
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that. That's cool. I'll have to look into that. Yeah. And then the music, though, because it was his first, is very much still in the kind of early for him, but later for bel canto era. So it's a little bit more like Weber and Meyerbeer and those kind of things. So you get glimpses of Wagner as his true self, but it's very much like still an exercise in theory, I feel.
Well, I'm glad he wrote more than one opera.
Yeah, if you stop there, okay.
Indeed. And apropos that for all of you, in terms of singing Lohengrin versus singing other Wagner operas, could we just go maybe starting with you, Mr. Rooks? Anything particular about singing this opera as opposed to other things? I know you've performed at the Met, you've performed Fire Shut Up in My Bones, you've performed Porgy and Bess, and you've done a lot of covers. So how does this opera, how is it different?
Well, what I love about Wagner, I tell people it's bel canto for the larger voices, and it's yes, he wants size, but he wants lyricism, grand lyricism. That's the great thing I love about Wagner music, period. It is grand, but it's very lyrical. There's a line, there's melody, there's beauty in it. So I guess that's something that's not really, talked about or shared. Someone once told me when I was telling them that I was getting ready to do a Wagner, I think my first Wagner role was actually Tristan in Connecticut. And someone told me, remember, Wagner is to be sung, not screamed.
Amen. Yes, indeed.
And I said, yes, preach.
Mr. Groissböck, I know you've done many of the later Wagner roles,
Yeah.
Wotan and such. How does
Only at the dress rehearsal, but okay.
how does the singing the role of the king in Lohengrin? How does that compare?
Well, actually, as I mentioned already, in terms of harmony, when you just mentioned Tristan, of course, it's a quite early piece. So it's quite square, it's quite, I wouldn't say simple, but predictable where the harmony is going to, except in the ensemble.
Yes, right.
Sometimes. Well, actually, in total range, it's for me. It's my, how should I say? It sounds not very grateful, but this is sort of daily bread, and then I'm so used to it, and I don't ask myself these questions because Lohengrin is Lohengrin and Tristan is Tristan, and it's just at the moment it's very funny because also Brian, he's my father-in-law. We are rehearsing Rosenkavalier now at the same time, and this is totally different. The way of thinking and how the engine works, it's very healthy for my mind, but it's challenging because Lohengrin is a lot of, as I said, active listening. Of course, you have to be prepared, and vocally it's very demanding, although it's not very long as the king. But on the other hand, Rosenkavalier is just the opposite. You have no time to listen. You just have to
Baron Ochs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's the same, I think, with Fannenal for you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So for us, it's a kind of hot-cold therapy at the moment. We're meeting in the evening, and Lohengrin said, "Whoa, okay," and then next morning. So just from the superficial point. Yeah.
So, Mr. Mulligan, for you.
For me, I think, each Wagner opera is its own masterpiece, and it's kind of like you can't really compare them. But I guess I would say that Lohengrin, to me, feels like maybe the most lyrical, maybe the most beautiful.
Magic.
Yeah, I mean, The Ring, all the operas of The Ring are like this overwhelming, incredible, music on their own. I guess I would compare it at most to Parsifal. Mm-hmm. I think, I think there's just such gorgeous music in Parsifal where you can just kind of bask there. And for me, that basking moment in Lohengrin come, with you guys singing, but also with the chorus. I just cannot express to you how fortunate I am that the way Francois staged it is that I get to just be there, closer than I am to you now. The chorus is that close to me, and let me tell you, it is this overwhelming sound, and it's just glorious. So
it's like a wave.
Yeah, it's a wave of.
Wave.
I mean, and they kind of surround us. Yeah. It's unreal, especially the end of Act 2 when you guys are getting married. I mean, it's just amazing. So yeah.
Now, Mr. Beczala, you have to dance down the stairs like Fred Astaire while singing this incredibly exposed music. Is that anxiety-provoking?
Well, for me, as I said, it's the only Wagner role in that time, and it stays like that for a while. But I really enjoy every moment, especially in this production. As Brian said, when we are in the middle of this incredible sound of the chorus, Metropolitan Opera, they are really just brilliant. And of course, it's a wonderful masterpiece, and every good chorus make it well. But here's a special sound, and it's so joy for me when I prepare myself for the entrance in the second act after the 1 hour 50 minutes break. And I'm always talking a little to Donald, the chorus chef, who is always sitting there on the side and making notes or listening or doing some ideas for maybe for the next performance. It's really brilliant, and so that's really highlights for me. But I can't compare it with any other opera of Wagner because I never sung other operas of Wagner. That's the thing. You know, there's some very nice and important people in my life. They try to convince me to sing more Wagner. Maybe it happens one day, but you know, when I see in this season, I mean in this year, 2023, I'm singing 23 performances of Lohengrin. Oh, wow. That's in my schedule. It's absolutely maximum, and it is on the costs of other operas and other styles. What I'm doing. So when I started 2016, Wagner was exception in my schedule, and now we are almost the half of the season with Lohengrin. And can you imagine when I take, I don't know, Parsifal and Walter Stolzing to my repertoire, I will be a Wagner tenor, and nobody wants to have this.
Well, there's always Siegmund, right?
Yeah.
Well, I know, yes. There's Siegmund, Siegfried, Tannhäusers, and also. No, life is too short to make this all. That's for sure. And
well, then you shouldn't sound so beautiful.
Yeah,
It's your own fault.
I work on it.
Okay.
So, Tamara.
Other than Die Feen, my first staged Wagner was this past summer in Santa Fe. It was Tristan and Isolde.
Wow, what a way to begin.
Thanks. So, yeah, I started kind of really like the pinnacle, and then Elsa felt like singing the ABCs after that. Sorry. I loved learning Tristan for the fact that it was such a huge challenge. And I took a lot of time with it because it was first supposed to be performed in 2020, and then obviously that got canceled. So I put the score away for a long time, and then they rescheduled it, and I went, oh, I actually have to memorize this. And then Lohengrin was not originally in my schedule. It got in there kind of late, and I'm currently learning Tosca, Fanciulla, and Sieglinde, all before June. So,
What do you do in your spare time?
Yeah, well, Brian came into the green room, and I had my Tosca score open, and he was like, "You're not working," and I was like, "Yep." Yeah, so for me, Wagner singing is just what Errin said. It's literally still lyrical singing.
Yes.
It's just you have to be so mindful and so resonant the whole time that you're cutting through the orchestra. But it's not pushing, it's not shouting. Yeah, it's all about just being completely one with your whole body. Like I can't sing Wagner without my whole body being involved. I can sing Mozart where I'm like, running around on stage and I'm good. But if anybody was like, can you run here and back and do Elsa? I'd be like, no, it's just not possible. You need, it's an athleticism of a different kind. Everybody always says, it's Wagner singing is a marathon and not a sprint, and it's true. And I don't necessarily think it's because of the length of the opera, but just the amount of energy you need to sing them. Yeah.
And then you have that drag-out fight in Act 2, right?
Christine, that evil woman. It's so funny. I love telling this story. So Christine and I met in Houston on a Don Carlo, and she was singing Eboli. I was singing Elisabetta, and our very first day of rehearsal, she's sitting next to me, and we're just going to do a musical run-through. And she goes, I hope you brought your big girl panties. And I was like, and, I was still really young at the time. So I was like, oh gosh, like this Wagnerian, like is, challenging me. And we got through my first aria, and she was like, okay, you brought them. And I was like, yay, I brought my big girl panties. So that was my introduction to Christine. And it's nice because sopranos never meet. Like, we never get to see each other because it's always one soprano in an opera or nothing. And so to be able to sing with her twice is really lovely. Yeah, Our fight is fun.
Well, I think we have a few more minutes. I have to make up time. You know, we went into overtime, so I have to get you to your destination in time. But a couple of thoughts that you have to help our audience appreciate this opera even more.
I have a little story.
Good.
Okay, guys, picture it. It's the first music rehearsal. I'm sitting next to Tammy, Christine's sitting on the other side of me, and they sang the duet. There were two Turandots on either side of me. I was just like, it was great.
Well, you know, the interesting thing about the way Wagner scores this is, by and large, when he has all of the brass playing, I say by and large because there are a couple of exceptions, but by and large, he gives a space for the voice to come through.
Yeah.
He doesn't try and drown you out with masses of sound. He does give you a chance to be lyrical.
Mm-hmm.
There is one thought what I have, that because we are singing this on the stage of Metropolitan Opera, this huge opera house, so it is really difficult not to go over your edge, you know, or in the red figures and in the problem zones. So because it's visuality, what you see from the stage, it's this huge house, and you want to go. You have to
push.
You know, of course,
yeah.
for me it's easier. You know, everybody sang already on the stage, but I always thinking when I'm here that it's the most friendly acoustic in the opera world, and if you sing right, you will come through. You don't have to push, and this is very, very important, especially in Wagner operas.
Absolutely, yeah. Indeed. So, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. And again, you are all heroes to be able to have sung 2 productions this past week and be here today. So, thank you so much.